God Told Me To is a 1976 released sci-fi horror thriller film directed by Larry Cohen.
Well, the reason we picked it is because sadly Larry Cohen passed away recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was famous for kind of B movies mostly, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And this is one of them. So it starts with a shooting in New York. Somebody taking pot shots from a roof, well, top of a water tower. Just random pedestrians in the streets of New York. And yeah, we're introduced to Detective Peter Nicholas, who is rapidly on the scene, and he climbs up the water tower to try and talk the gunman down. You know, and he asks him why he did it, and before he throws himself off the water tower, he tells him that God told him to. So then we proceed to see more random killings where the perpetrator claims that God told him to do it. I think there's a stabbing in a supermarket, and a man just kills his family. Oh, and a policeman at St Patrick's Day parade just suddenly starts shooting people. Little cameo from Andy Kaufman there as that policeman.
It is. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah.
In his first film role. Yeah. So obviously, it's not made public that this is what the killers have said. So, and that's the only thing connecting these people. You know, they didn't know each other. So obviously, this detective thinks, well, there's something strange going on, and he's a devout Catholic. So obviously, the fact that these people are saying this, rings alarm bells with him. So yeah, he investigates this, and we have a story of virgin births and alien abduction and psychic powers and cults and things like that. It's kind of difficult to talk too far into the film without sort of revealing a lot of these things.
So Larry Cohen, as you said earlier, he made a lot of B movies. That was kind of his thing. He also wrote quite a few of his own films. He wrote Phone Booth, the Colin Farrell one. And but yeah, he's mostly famous for. I mean, he's probably mostly famous for Maniac Cop. It's probably, I suppose, is his most film that kind of a lot of people know. Then of course you've got The Stuff. I'd say they're all quite cult films. All of his films. I'd say The Stuff is possibly the next one down, and then you've got things like Q, The Serpent.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but
that's amazing.
It does look good.
Completely
just
mental.
The poster.
Yeah, it's a really great film. I love The Stuff as well. It's Alive. Which is a really great film as well, and this one I haven't. There's quite a few. I've never seen Maniac Cop actually.
Haven't you?
No, it's funny. One of those ones that I've seen all I haven't seen all his films. But I've seen those ones I just mentioned, but I haven't got around to watching Maniac Cop. So yeah, that's the kind of filmmaker he was, and I think certainly his films have become quite cult classics over the years. I saw this a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's really strange. It's a bit of a head trip, actually. It goes to strange places. It's almost a little bit like an episode of the X-Files.
Actually, yeah. No, it is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things in there that kind of you feel like have maybe cropped up in X-Files and stuff. And there's possibly other films have maybe had nods to it. There's a couple of other. There's one I was thinking of that thought, this film feels familiar. I mean,
it's kind of got a sort of Omen.
Yeah, I
mean,
I think
that's.
I think what I really like about it is, obviously if you've watched many of our other videos, specifically horror ones, I'm quite tricky when it comes to horror films, and this isn't really a straight up horror film. It has horror elements in there, but what I do like about 70s horror style films is they tend to be very creepy.
Yeah.
The Omen was always very creepy. The Exorcist obviously is a creepy film. Don't Look Now. They have that kind of. I don't know if it's because they are kind of trying out new things with cinema that obviously nowadays we've almost been done to death. Plus it being a different era.
Well, they don't rely on jump scares.
Well, they don't rely on jump scares, certainly not. And they try out different ideas. And it's got its story is an original story. It's quite a strange story. And it certainly goes to some of the stuff in it. That's something else they tended to play with in the 70s was kind of colours, psychedelic colours, was kind of the era of psychedelia, and so there's a few kind of psychedelic moments going on in there. It's one of those films that certain moments feel like you're on an acid trip, basically.
Yes.
And for that I really like it. But then also it plays on the whole, I suppose, on the hypocrisy of religion. The opening sequence is very interesting. If obviously the times we live in now with the mass shootings and the hysteria that goes into that, And I think it's kind of it's a very interesting dialogue on control and hypocrisy and the control of religion and things like that. And I think those things are definitely touched upon. And it's also the whole film itself feels quite documentary-like. I think Larry Cohen, I'm not sure if he either started doing documentaries on kind of police procedures, but a lot of his films had that kind of feel to it.
Yeah. I mean, he wrote for Columbo and The Fugitive and things like that before.
Right. Oh, well, there you go. So very much into crime, and I imagine Maniac Cop. Obviously, being a cop, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Like I said, I should maybe go out and watch that one soon. But this one in particular feels like there's a lot of kind of police. When they're in the cop station, and just you get that feel. It feels a bit documentary like the whole film. I suppose French Connection is another one that feels quite it's filmed quite documentary style. This one almost more so. It's kind of it's quite a dialogue heavy film. There's obviously a few action sequences, but kind of slightly bigger set pieces. But for the most part, there's a lot of dialogue in this film, and it's done pretty well, that kind of thing. And you've also got Sandy Dennis in there, who was a big famous actor of the 70s. She was in something else we did, Parents.
Oh yeah.
She was the psychiatrist in Parents, and she's always a kind of quite strange. She plays the cop's ex-wife in this, and there's obviously they have a kind of religious link going on.
I mean, that whole sort of dynamic was a bit odd.
It was a bit odd. It was a bit kind of psycho.
Yeah.
But with the wife instead of the mother. Yeah, it was a bit odd, that, because he's got this like young girlfriend in New York, and then at one point he goes back to see. I think the first time I saw her, I didn't quite know who she was at first.
I thought it was his sister or something.
Yeah, but then he's like getting a bit up close and personal with her, and it's like, what is going on here? And of course, if you do sometimes get that kind of religious thing in films, which is really a bit creepy and eerie, especially if you're not into it yourself. It's even more eerie. I've always found. I mean, I'm not scared of religion or anything like that, but I don't go for it. I don't believe in any of it. But I've always found things, the whole, image of Christ. It always looks so depressed and down. Why can't? I mean, I do love.
Well,
that
you would
thing.
be if someone nailed you to a cross.
Well, I guess so. But he's always like miserable. He always looks scary. I mean, obviously, Exorcist 3 uses the bleeding, the bleeding from the eyes, which has been done time and time again anyway. But I always loved. Is it Dogma when you got the
Buddy Christ?
Buddy Christ. I mean,
Yes.
that was just amazing. That was so cool. But it's good for horror films, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sad and looking Christ figure works. It's creepy. Yeah, because I've always found I quite like films about religion, which is I suppose kind of strange because I don't believe in. I don't believe in heaven or God or anything like that. But I've always found films about religion quite an interesting. I've always been interested in the whole phenomena of the belief of religion and God and all that stuff. But I find films that take on that quite interesting, and it kind of I suppose at times reminded me a little bit of the Dark Song that we covered.
Yeah.
I mean that was another one with that kind of interest in the unknown, and the end of that. We didn't do spoilers. I'm not going to do spoilers now. There is there's some religious stuff in that film.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of that running time, you don't really know whether what they're doing is real or not, and whether it's just a big trick.
But I think I spoke in that. If you go back and watch that review, I spoke how I wasn't so keen on the ending of that film. But in this film, and not talking about the ending specifically, this is kind of possibly what I was talking about in that one.
Right.
In what I would like from these kind of films. But yeah, so I think this is possibly one that is not hugely known. I would definitely say Maniac Cop and possibly The Stuff. You seen The Stuff? You said?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was expecting something like The Blob.
Yeah,
but it's not quite
like that.
No,
so
I need to watch it again. I think because I had certain expectation, it didn't quite meet that, and I was like, this is a bit weird.
Right.
But I think I need to reassess it.
Yeah, sure. So no, I think this is. I don't know how big this is. I think this is another kind of cult. It's become a cult classic, and maybe slightly more obscure than most cult classics out there.
I mean, I think when it came out, it wasn't particularly well received.
I think it was. No, not at all.
And particularly because of the religious elements of it. I think some countries it was renamed Demon
Oh, okay.
to,
Right.
I guess, to make it more marketable.
I guess so, and obviously when you've got, you're coming out 2-3 years after The Exorcist, then any film about religion that's got a hint of eeriness in there, well, let's just make it sound like The Exorcist, because that's how to sell your film, I suppose. It's nothing like The Exorcist. I mean, maybe there's a few nods in there, I don't know, but it is a lot more B movie like than obviously The Exorcist is a much bigger budget film. This one feels like a budget film, like a B movie, which is great because you kind of, that's what you expect from it. You don't expect anything more.
But considering it's a B movie, I thought the acting was pretty decent.
Yeah, definitely.
The main guy, what's his name? Tony
Bianco.
That's it. He's no cheesy acting or anything for sort of B movie style film. It's he's a solid performance.
And I think that goes back to like I say, it being a kind of dialogue heavy film. When you have a dialogue heavy film, you kind of want the acting to be pretty good.
Yeah.
To carry you along, otherwise you just kind of start falling asleep. And I think yes, you're right. I think the acting is done well in this film, he does it really well. I don't really know him from. He may have done.
Although interestingly, originally Robert Forster was in that role.
Oh, that's right.
But
he
fell out with Larry Cohen.
Yeah, he said that Larry Cohen was a bit of a kind of a shouty director and didn't.
So he just
didn't
quit.
Bothered with that. So quit exactly. But and there is a soundtrack. That's the film it reminded me of, and I think it was down to the soundtrack. There's a couple of soundtrack moments in there that reminded me of Ghostbusters. There's a couple of, especially, I'm not going to sing it. It's a piece of classical music, but there's a kind of a thing that my brother would be able to do it because he would probably know exactly what I was talking about. But there's it's like a string that goes up. And it's very similar to Ghostbusters. And there was a couple of moments in there just kind of reminded me of the film itself. There were moments in there that reminded me of certain bits of Ghostbusters. I thought I enjoyed it I've seen it a few times now, but you liked it.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't. It took a while to get going, but once it started going to these weird places, I was like, this is quite I'm quite interested, and it held my attention, and I enjoyed it.
Great, excellent stuff. Well, I don't have it on, and neither of us have it on DVD or Blu-ray. Is it available?
Yeah, you can get it as a Blue Underground release in the US, which came out I think about 2015. Got loads of features and remaster picture and all that stuff, and it's on DVD as well. I think the only other release I'm aware of is in Spain, where it goes by its name Demon, and that's it really. I mean, there's DVDs around. I think Vipco released it over here, but their releases were never that great. It's all cropped. It's a 1:3:3 ratio and that, so it's chopping off the sides, but not massively difficult to track down if you want a copy.
So that was God Told Me To, and as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Yep, hit that subscribe button up there if you've enjoyed what you've watched. There's some other videos to check out over there. Come and find us on Twitter and Facebook, and come back next week for another video.